I'm going to talk a little about the shooting today in Oakcreek at the Sikh temple. Been reading the online and hearing responses from people concerning this incident. Um, I certainly can understand the need to want to respond, but like in many instances of this nature, people start responding blindly, perhaps. The need to respond is human, it's natural, it's instinctual. Uh, we all have a sense of intensity, and we all know how incredulous it is, and at the same time, how horrific, which is why we're drawn. Um, the blind responding, however, starts to assume they know who did it. They start to assume why they did it. Some people, I'm sure, who support attacks like this um, are happy. Other people who would condemn this are angry and sad and horrified. Um, but sometimes the way we respond can contribute to the insanity, even though that's not our intention. Some of the posts and some of the blogs and some of the responses to this, they're saying it's the left or it's the right, it's political, it's not political. Oh, we need tougher gun laws, or we need to let everyone carry a gun. Yeah, nobody's right, nobody's wrong. However, what I don't see is that when we take a position, we don't support that position with empathy, with compassion. Uh, Typically, we speak out of these other emotions, which are high volume intensity, but that don't necessarily get us any closer to a solution or to resolving uh, the real issues behind this type of incident. We all know that the reality is things like this will continue to happen. However, another reality could be that they happen less frequently. Um, that perhaps we can rally more and more individuals to respond intelligently to these things. If you've been watching the information coming in, the first person who saw the shooter was supposed to be 10 years old. Um, we shouldn't be making this political. It should first and foremost be about the victims, um, and then perhaps secondly about the community. And somewhere on that paradigm, um, perhaps discuss legislation and politics concerning this matter. But I think oftentimes what happens is we take the humanity out of the approach, and we simply respond as if we were Neanderthal. Again, our intention is probably to want to do something. You may find yourself hating the person who did it. Uh, you may find yourself feeling that uh, you have the solution. But like many things in this world, rarely does it take one single approach to resolve this matter. Rarely does it take one side of politics one type of legislation. It requires people to be diverse. It requires people to be patient. It requires people to be open-minded. It requires people to be compassionate. It requires people to stay on some level in a managed form of control when it comes to your emotional response to this. Hate doesn't just beget more hate. Violence doesn't just get more violence. It increases it. When you hate someone, you don't get the equal amount of that hate back. You get an escalated version of that hatred back. And then when you respond to that escalated level of hate, you yourself then escalate. Hate is not okay with being equal. Hate demands superiority. And so it's never going to end if we use these negative emotions to take a stance. We don't need pity. We don't need sympathy. That's not what we're asking for. What we're asking for is an intelligent response. Who has a responsibility to respond to this? All people, all humans. Not just in Oakcreek, not just in Milwaukee, not just here in Racine where I'm at. London, Ireland, Germany, Norway, China, Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, South America. All human beings need to respond. You can have a sort of justified anger concerning this, but you have to balance that out by making sure that the mind is also involved. It doesn't matter to me what side of politics you stand on. It doesn't matter to me what religion. Doesn't matter to me what stance you take on many things. What we have seen with our own eyes when we went to Ireland for the Summit Against Violent Extremism were more than 50 countries, 6 continents, every possible language, every possible religious view, every possible political view, coming together for one common cause, which was to reduce violence in the world. People overcame their superficial differences. Those superficial differences are often mistaken for meaningful differences. And what we found was that our meaningful differences were beautiful and brought us together for a common purpose, which was to make the world safer and better for our children and for others, including that 10-year-old boy and all the other victims in there who witnessed and were affected by this, killed by this, their families. And as unpopular as this may sound, that shooter has a family and they're now his victims as well. And even the shooter is a victim. Not someone to be pitied or sympathied, but a victim of his own hate. This is what happens to people who don't channel that energy in a positive way into something else. And I guarantee in there, inside of that person somewhere, is a human being. We may not want to see that. We may not want to know that. But the very best that is in all of us is in him. But the very worst that was in him is in all of us. And that's what we have to understand. We are no better or no worse by nature, but by choice. The choices we make will either lead us to a path of forgiveness and reconciliation and compassion and understanding, or we will ascribe with other people who sympathize with hate, who sympathize with violence, and we will soon find ourselves in a never-ending battle to continue to escalate towards hate and violence. As a practitioner in the field today, looking for resolution, looking for forgiveness, looking for a way to find a message that will be received by just even a handful of people here or there, I recognize that my past has directly resulted in me becoming that. My past started with hate and violence. I was in the womb when my mother tried to kill my brother. And when she lost him to the state, she picked up with me. And as a result, I picked up hate. I picked up violence as a main method of teaching, a main method of controlling. And I became good at it. I acted out blindly. I acted out violently. It started with hating a handful, to two handfuls, to a community, to the world, and it took my hate right up to the clouds. And I'll be damned if I didn't want to change until the world changed, until that person up there changed. But it wasn't until I took responsibility for my pain and suffering, and even my history, the pain that was brought to me, that was given to me through birth. It wasn't until that I took that responsibility to heal those wounds that I overcame myself. Many of you have never practiced hate and violence in the way that I have, but sometimes it takes a little more subtle role. We say things, we do things that we think are innocuous, that we think are innocent, are harmless, but we have to be careful because like germs, hate is very easy to spread, even when it wasn't our intention. We have to be mindful. We have to be intelligent. I'm asking this community, the international community, to respond intelligently. We don't need to turn this into a political or racial battle or religious battle. What this needs to be is a fight for good, a fight for the human right to live free of this type of action in the world. This is a fight that you have to fight, but it cannot be won by fighting. We will have to be willing to construct a new narrative, a counter narrative, and ask others to do the same. With our deepest sympathies for Oakcreek victims and their families and the community. Here from Racine, supporting my brother Arnold Michaels from Life After Hate, the Summit Against Violent Extremism crew that's all over the world. I'm asking you guys to take a stand with us today and encourage the next person to get involved intelligently. Thank you.